You're listening to DecayMag, Horror Entertainment News Podcast. Online source for news, interviews, and trending topics.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to DecayMag, Horror Entertainment News Podcast. This is Season 9, Episode 5. My name is Ken Artuz, your host, founder for DecayMag. Joining me as co-host is
Stacy Cox, staff correspondent for DecayMag.com. Be sure to stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/DecayMag. Your donations will help us bring future episodes. As a patron, you'll receive bonus content as well as free and discounted on upcoming DecayMag merchandise.
And in this episode, we have 2 double interviews. And what I mean by double interviews was 2 parties where they partook in the interview session. And the first one is Aaron Mento, producer and actor, and Charles Chudabala, producer for the comedy horror Ugly Sweater Party. Yes, there's actually a film called Ugly Sweater Party. The second interview is co-directors, co-writers Nick Chakwin and David Guglielmo with their upcoming thriller. Well, it released on Friday. The thriller titled Hospitality. We have those in our exclusive interview segments. And Stacy, a lot of new interesting topics we have here, especially Resident Evil reboot and a couple of films in production and the trailers. What do you think about those slate of trailers we're going to be talking about in this episode?
Oh, well, as far as reboot, Resident Evil reboot, I feel like, really? Okay. But also, honestly, I am so out of tune with Resident Evil. I've seen 1 and 2, and that is it. So I can't really speak too much on that. As far as, but I do love this title, Cowgirls and Pterodactyls. That's my kind of title. So that might get my attention. As far as trailers, press depression, Ribbons, The Great Buddha Arrival, and Curse. All I gotta say is WTF.
Whoa.
WTF.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're gonna give our 2 cents on trailer first impressions, and that's a very interesting segment because trailers, they're a marketing tool, and it depends on how you could have such an elaborate trailer that calls people's attention, and you watch the movie, it's totally opposite. Or you could have a bad trailer and you watch the movie and it could be amazing. So these things are very important.
Yeah, definitely. And in this case, I really don't know what to say here on these trailers, but yeah, WTF.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man, I can't wait till you see, especially the trailer for The Great Buddha Arrival. I watched that trailer twice, and I'm just up here like, what did I watch? I don't know. I really don't know. We have to rely on IMDb to give us something here on what this trailer is about. I'll tell you that.
Oh, most definitely. And also, as I had mentioned, we have 2 interviews. Ugly Sweater Party is the first one. And the synopsis for that is an ugly sweater party turns into a bloodbath when an evil Christmas sweater possesses one of the partygoers. Oh, wow. I mean, you can't get any...
That sounds interesting.
It's interesting. And it also stars, it has a well-rounded cast. It stars Felicia Rose, Sean Whalen, Kevin Caliber, Berna Roberts. And yeah, if you like campy B-movie comedy, yeah, this is definitely a watch. And also, as I mentioned, the second And also, the second interview that we have is titled Hospitality, and the synopsis for that one is: a woman with a checkered past must protect her son when a man brings trouble to her isolated bed and breakfast. Remember, Stacy, that we had the trailer first impressions for this film last episode, or the episode prior, and we were both fascinated with the trailer. We wanted to find out more about the film, and well, we secured a screener and an interview.
Oh yes, I do remember. Awesome. I can't wait.
And without further ado, let's begin DecayMag Horror Entertainment News Podcast Season 9, Episode 5.
Segment 1. Movie News. Resident Evil Reboot in development.
Kenner 2's here, and our first topic for Segment 1 Movie News: Resident Evil Reboot in development. I can't believe we are discussing the reboot for Resident Evil. I mean, the topic of reboots always crops up every so often, but I find this fascinating that a reboot for Resident Evil is in consideration. Now, according to Variety, Constantine Films has been talking about rebooting Resident Evil since May of last year. Of course, we all know that the franchise has proven to be very successful. It earned $1.2 billion worldwide. Of course, that's not to say that most of the installments, some of the installments, all of the installments to this franchise were a piece of shit. The fact of the matter is, people went to the movies, paid their ticket, and even if they were disappointed, you can't get a refund. So that is $1.2 billion this franchise earned. For those who are unaware, the Resident Evil films is loosely, and I do mean the term loosely, is loosely based on the video game. The films focus on the protagonist Alice, who's portrayed by Mila Jovovich, and Alice fights zombies terrorizing an area called Raccoon City after an experiment has gone wrong. Of course, the corporation behind this experiment is the Umbrella Corporation, which is responsible for the zombies and all these creatures running amok in this city. The most recent Resident Evil film was released back in 2016, and it earned $312 million. That was released in January, by the way, and it earned $160 million in China. Now, the new director and writer for Resident Evil is Johannes Roberts, and he is notable for his film 47 Meters Down, and also Strangers Pray at Night. Stacy, what is your opinion on this Resident Evil reboot?
Man, you know, I'm so out of touch when it comes to Resident Evil. I've seen the first two movies. I know a little bit about the video games, but I feel like, how many movies have been made here? How many installments? And why is there even a reboot?
Well, Resident Evil released back in 2002, and it's this new reboot is going to release in, let's say, 2019 production starts, so maybe 2020 if everything goes according to plan. But come on, really? That is too new to earn a reboot. And I agree with you. How many chapters were there? For me, the first one was good. It like I said, loosely based on the video game. It has some of the characters, yeah, but Mila and her husband really took over this movie franchise so much that it has nothing to do with the video game whatsoever.
Exactly. I feel like it's way too new to even do a reboot. It's in the 2000s and we're in 2018. Like, this movie, I mean, honestly, reboots should happen in the 70s or later. Okay, that's how I feel. I feel like 2000s, why is there even an idea or the thought of a remake? No.
Absolutely. And I think your daughter agrees with you there. I hear her cooing in the background. Yeah, she says no to reboots.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's, come on, really. If you really want to see a good Resident Evil movies, I always advise to check out the anime films that released in the Japanese market. They're already overdubbed in English. Phenomenal. The whole film is in CGI, and all the characters, all the villains are in the movie. That's one thing that I don't like about this franchise. Yeah, you have the characters, but they are so low key, and the whole movie is about Milla's character that I call it the Alice movie, because it's all about Alice.
Exactly, and that's what I've noticed watching just 1 and 2. It's really all about Alice. I feel like the movies were a great idea, and they weren't bad. You know, I love Mila. Okay, I am going to search her last name, because if not, I am just going to
Mila Jovovich.
Mila Jovovich, all right, and Michelle Rodriguez. I love them both. But I am right there with you, with it really being all about Mila.
Yeah. And of course, that all has to do with her husband, Paul W.S. Anderson, writer, director, puts his wife in the main role. Come on. And then at the end of the last chapter, they have their daughter. So it became a whole family affair. They just took over that whole franchise. One thing that I like is, if you're going to create a main character, please make that character have weaknesses. She has no weaknesses whatsoever in this movie. Of course, we're talking about a zombie movie. It's supposed to be cut and paste plot here. But still, make her weak. Why does she have to be the focal point of every single frame, every single movie now? Like I said, check out the anime. You'll love it. It's amazing. You haven't seen the anime, Stacy?
I have not seen the anime, and I agree with you when you say she's the focal. It's like she's like the female version of Terminator.
The female version. That's a good one. Basically, you got that right. And the films that I'm referring to in particular, to check them out, is the 2008 Resident Evil Degeneration, then 2012 Resident Evil Damnation, and then 2017 Resident Evil Vendetta. I'm telling you, each of these films tie in with the game. There are amazing CGI, amazing stuff. I just don't know why Hollywood don't make films like this. The only film they made all CGI was Final Fantasy, and it didn't get the recognition it deserved. If they make Resident Evil like this here, oh, forget it. It would blow up the box office.
They definitely don't need a reboot right now this early. It's way too soon. I mean, wait for another freaking decade at least. You know, wait till the 2030s or something like that before you try to do a reboot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you know, actually, the first two movies that I saw were actually pretty good. They were good. I liked them. I never played the video games, but I liked the movies. And I feel like it wasn't really much wrong, except for, like you said, how the main character. She was way too tough. But and you know, I'm all about, you know, femdom. I'm all about that. But for crying out loud, show a little bit of weakness here. I mean, we get it. You're strong. You know, you don't take no shit, but just a little bit. Just, you know, put up a fight here.
Right.
It is a zombie movie after all, and we need to see a little bit of fight, because if you're just like defeating all the zombies, it's like there's not really much of a movie to go on. She killed all the zombies and that's it.
Absolutely. Oh, well, let's see how this reboot is going to be.
Yeah. And also, another thing, this reboot, will it star the same characters or no? Because that's very important.
Well, according to Variety, they're going to have a new cast. Let's see what happens with that. Hopefully, we don't see Alice anymore. Good riddance, and maybe they'll focus on the characters and the villains, because there's so many of both from the game.
Voices in production.
Ken Artuz here, presenting the second topic for segment 1 movie news. Voices. The film Voices is in production. We have a film, news of a new upcoming film titled Voices. This film is under production between Nuon Films and Blue Muse Entertainment. The film is directed by Nathaniel Noon, and the cast includes Valerie Jane Parker, Ashley Bell, Jordan Ladd, and double platinum country music artist Tracy Lawrence. Here, the synopsis, Stacy, for this upcoming film titled Voices. It's quite lengthy, and here it goes. After visiting her father's grave, Lily and her mother are involved in a terrible car accident that leaves Lily orphaned and unable to see. In her youth, she struggles with blindness and begins to hear voices, unbeknownst to her, that don't belong to the living. Learning to cope with it all, Lily is now an adult and happily married with a baby on the way. Soon, Lily discovers her unborn baby has become a second chance for those souls stuck in limbo to be reborn. But she only has until the baby's first heartbeat to decide which soul. The voices she heard in her youth return in full force and frequency. Through the voices, she befriends the spirit of a little girl tied to a cold case 4 years ago. Lily finds herself having to fight against the girl's murderers as well as the souls vying to be born again. Lengthy synopsis there. Stacy, what is your opinion on this film? This sounds so interesting. We always talk about being interested in something original. By reading the synopsis, I don't think I've seen or heard anything quite like this.
I have to agree with you there. I am definitely looking forward to seeing how this is playing out. Honestly, reading the synopsis, I was thinking about movies such as like Stillborn or, but without a trailer, you can't really tell, honestly. If all you have to go on is a synopsis, which is very interesting, you just have to wait for the film, or hopefully there will be a trailer soon to come.
Right. Well, considering that the film is in production now, as a matter of fact, Voices, it's slated to release for 2019. So perhaps they already completed this. According to the press release, they say they began filming. But let's see at what point what quarter of next year this film would release, because remember, the year has 4 quarters. You're right. I can't wait to see what the trailer brings, but with the synopsis alone, it seems very interesting. The only thing that comes close would be the Eye, that remake with Jessica Alba, but of course it's from the Asian horror cinema. That's the only thing I could think of. She got an implant, her eye, and she could ascend spirits. That's the only thing. But the plot here for Voices seems so entirely different.
Yeah, I agree with that. Reading the synopsis, it sounds like I had never seen the movie The Eye, but I've seen the trailer. I have never seen the movie Stillborn, but I've seen the trailer. So, Orphan or Newborn or whatever, and Voices and stuff like that, I just think of movies like that. So, as far as the synopsis go, it is very interesting. It sounds like other films, but like I said, without those visuals, you can't really say.
Right, absolutely. I hope this is an intriguing supernatural thriller, and I hope it's not PG-13. Please make it rated R. PG-13 is so... whenever I see a film with PG-13 already, I know what they're aiming for. It's not story, it's just marketing. And yeah, that's the downfall right now for horror films. Not to say that all PG-13 horror films are bad, but it's just the fact that they're just catering to a wide audience. They're subtracting, let's say, for example, gore or story or something violent. Yeah, that's the fall here.
Honestly, I feel like unless you are a horror comedy or like a animated film, you should not be rated PG-13. It should be rated R. And I mean, you even got some horror comedies that are rated R. But unless you're just hitting the family market, a horror movie should never be rated R. Right. Unless you're Goosebumps. I mean, if you're a movie like Goosebumps, then by all means. But other than that, nah.
Right. There shouldn't be a reason.
Horror should not be rated R at all.
Exactly. Horror is horror. And even thrillers. Come on. Thrillers, PG-13. I see most of them are becoming PG-13 now. Come on. Whatever. In any event, I'm looking forward to Voices. And yeah, I'm intrigued with this synopsis. I want to see what the trailer brings, how the acting is, and all the cinematography that goes behind the production, the supernatural production. And hopefully the CGI is not over the top, because of course we see that there's ghosts. Hopefully it's not digital ghosts and more sophisticated looking ghosts and not so obvious CGI.
If I see the same ghosts that are in the Haunted Mansion, it's like, no, sorry. That doesn't work.
The Haunted or what was that?
Eddie Murphy, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Or Van Helsing. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
No.
Or Casper the Friendly Ghost. I don't want to see Casper the Friendly Ghost.
No, neither do I. No, I want to see sophisticated, or not even. You don't even need to show the ghost. For example, look at The Haunting of Hill House from Netflix. Look how the ghosts are in that series. Amazing stuff there. Oh, come on. They could do that on the big screen. Easy. And it's so creepy. Yeah. Well, let's see what happens.
Or you could always just keep us guessing and, just be like they did in the 60s. You never saw the ghosts, the monsters, or anything like that. You just heard a scream and that was it.
Right.
And that was scary. Remember Dracula?
Yes.
Bela Lugosi's Dracula back at that time?
Yes.
All he did was cover them up with his cape, and you heard a scream, and that was it. And that was enough.
Right. That was enough. And sometimes that's all you need is that what you would call it, that mental game, that mental play. You don't need to show the whole thing. Absolutely correct.
That was the thing about those movies back in the day. They were all like mental. It was psychological.
Right. Well, let's see what happens. I have my hopes up, hoping that this will be something cool.
The patient who nearly drove me out of medicine in development.
Ken R2's here, and the third topic for our first segment, movie news, is the upcoming film in development, The Patient Who Nearly Drove Me Out of Medicine. This film is not even in development. It is on the planning stages, and Ryan Reynolds, most notable for his role as Deadpool, will be producing this film through his Deadpool and Pikachu. That's a topic for a different program. Well, he'll be producing this film through his company Maximum Effort Production, along with Vertigo Pictures. And The Patient Who Nearly Drove Me Out of Medicine. That's a lengthy title. It is based on a online published story on Reddit No Sleep. And the story is about an idealistic young doctor who tries to solve a mystery and heal its most difficult patient. Now, according to Variety, who broke this story, the companies, the studios, were bidding for this story. And that's great because, Stacey, you and I always talk about how we want original content in horror. I see now there's a shift with major studios that they're picking up ideas not only from novels, which we have spoken a couple of podcasts prior, but now they're looking over on other platforms. And in this case, Reddit. Amazing stuff. So, Stacey, what do you think about this upcoming? There's little information, but what do you think about this?
I laughed because Ryan Reynolds, now every time I hear his name and see his face, I will always think of Deadpool. But, with this, sounds like Patient 7 with director, well, actually it was an anthology. So it was several directors and everything. You don't remember Patient 7? It was an anthology. I forget what year that was, but it pretty much it was of these characters. These are like weird. They were all patients, right? But Patient 7 was that character that it was a big twist in the movie. The person doing all the patient stuff. Okay, he turned out to be that one patient that was like, oh wow, so you're the craziest of them all. So
okay, yeah,
that's pretty much
familiar.
what this sounds.
It does sound familiar. Patient 7.
You have to watch it because it's a really good movie. Yeah, you don't remember? I watched that. What year is this? Well, 2016. Was reviewed in 2016. But yeah, and like I said, it was okay. Here's the synopsis. The film centers on Dr. Marcus, a renowned psychiatrist who has selected 6 severe, mentally ill, and dangerous patients from the Spring Valley Mental Hospital to interview as part of his research. But Dr. Marcus turned out to be patient number 7, the one who's crazier than all of them. You see what I'm talking about? You see that twist in there?
Yes.
I just gave away the film. Anyway, I'm sorry. I was not trying. You know how I hate to give away the film, but I couldn't really explain it any other way. But that's what this idea sounds like, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Yeah, it does sound familiar. It was a while back that we covered that film. That's why I have to put on my thinking cap there and try to remember. Yeah, it does sound familiar. Yes. And yeah, I think it does sound like that, but I would have to read the story. So I think you and we will have to jump on Reddit No Sleep and look for the patient who nearly drove me out of medicine, and read up on it and see what the whole what the hubbub was all about, that all these studios were competing heavy to get this film into their studios. But ultimately, Ryan Reynolds won that bidding war, and he's going to be producing it through his company, Maximum Effort Productions. And also Vertigo Films is also behind this as well. Hey, it's interesting. Ryan Reynolds is doing horror now. All right. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's that is awesome. That's something to get used to, but yeah, that's really awesome. So it sounds like that movie's gonna have another, honestly, and that is one long ass title, I should say. Can we cut that down like by 7 words?
Yeah, that's. I think the movie poster is going to be all the words of this title. That's it. Just the whole words.
Right. It's gonna be no like that. It's gonna be a picture of Ryan Reynolds in the background, and then just these big bold letters of the patient who nearly drove me out of bed. So I was like, what kind of title is that? That is the longest title in the history of cinema.
Well, I'm sure there were other.
Back in the 60s, the titles weren't that long.
Right? Exactly. I don't know if that's the longest one, but let's see. We gotta look into that too. But it's unique. I do enjoy original ideas, and I'm glad that the major studios are looking into other areas. They're going into novels. They're going into original novels online, and now they're going over to Reddit No Sleep. It just goes to show you, if you create a good story and you think you're a nobody, people are reading your shit, and before you know it, people gotta buy what you wrote and what you thought wasn't good, and before you know it, you're gonna set a name for yourself. So hang in there, whoever is writing novels and short stories, keep at it, because look at this, Reddit. It blows me away when I read this. Come on.
I mean, Reddit is such a complex platform. I have read it, but I have no clue like where to begin. I'm just like, okay, this is like foreign territory to me, so I'm just gonna scroll. I have not figured it out yet.
Exactly, same here. I tried Reddit a couple of times, and it's a different beast that you have to really.
It really is.
You gotta tame that.
And don't ever go try to like post something of your own. It's like, okay, well, I mean, you don't even know like what qualifies to post, because Reddit has its own everything. It's kind of like you can post whatever you want, but at the same time, watch what you post.
Right, yeah. I've heard it's fierce on there, very fierce critics and everything.
It is. I remember trying to post like a while back, and it was denied. I'm just like, okay, screw this. I'm not going to post anything at all. I'm just going to scroll and enjoy the content. How about that?
Right.
I'm just going to be that window shopper right there.
The digital window shopper.
Oh, it's way more complex than Facebook, than Twitter, than Instagram. Reddit is Snapchat. Reddit is seriously its own territory. You gotta know what you're doing on Reddit. You really do.
Cowgirls vs. Pterodactyls crowdfunding.
Ken R2's here, and closing out the first segment, movie news, is the crowdfunding for the upcoming indie horror film Cowgirls vs. Pterodactyl. And this project really exceeded on Indiegogo the goal to fund this film, or portion of this film, was $3,000, and the money that was already raised on this platform is $3,408. And there's, as the time of this recording, there are 3 days left on this campaign. The film is directed by Joshua Kennedy, and the actresses in this film are Haley Ziga, Carmen Vinhage, Madeline Wiley. And this film incorporates the stop motion effects. For those who do not know, that is claymation effects, which you would see most in older horror films of yesteryear. Personally, one that I've truly enjoyed to this day is the film titled Q. It was that giant dinosaur. And Ryan Lingill is the stop motion animator for Cowgirls vs. Pterodactyl. Stacy, we just finished watching the trailer, and the crowdfunding proved to be a success. What is your opinion on that little clip?
Yeah, so well, all was well until I saw that pterodactyl. I'm like, wow, what's that? A baby pterodactyl? It looks so harmless. But you know what's that? The cinematography and practical effects are reminding me of. I don't know if you've ever saw the movie called Birdemic, Shock and Terror.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Look at that pterodactyl and then remember that movie.
Yes.
How the birds looked when they were flying in. That's what that reminded me of, and I couldn't help but just laugh, oh my God.
Exactly. And you know what's funny? I'm beginning to notice that horror, it caters to everybody. We may laugh at the graphics to this, but there is a market. There is an audience that enjoy this type of graphics, and of course, everything else that follows. So this movie, right away, off the bat, we know it's going to be B-movie style, and a film that pays homage to creature features of yesteryear. Definitely, right at the bat, you already know that. We laugh because we always talk about CGI and practical effects. Oh my gosh, that pterodactyl looked like chicken from KFC.
Oh my God, that pterodactyl was so adorable, and she pulled out a pocket knife from that. I'm like, oh, he's harmless. He's like a hummingbird. He's not gonna hurt you at all. He's just gonna sing you a song.
Exactly. Oh man,
it was just so funny how gearing up for that, it was so intense. I'm like, oh my God, like something's big about to come. It's about to be like that, like the big pterodactyl from like Jurassic Park or something. That's what I'm expecting.
Right.
And then see, that was just like, what the hell is
what
that?
The hell
like,
was that?
Was it just born yesterday?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. It must have just been born or something. It's like a newborn. It's not gonna hurt you at all.
Exactly. Oh gosh, it's funny. It's hilarious.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just so adorable watching it fly. And she was so serious when she pulled out that blade. I was just like, sweetheart.
You're taking it too far. Put the knife away. You don't need that.
Put that knife away. You're not gonna need that at all.
Not at all. Wow.
But you're right, though. I think I'd rather see that than CGI.
Exactly. Right. It's funny.
But honestly, just looking at this poster on the Indiegogo, the poster itself looks good too. Like, maybe that baby pterodactyl grows up.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
I hope so. So yeah. Oh my God, it's so adorable.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's harmless. Don't kill the baby bird.
Oh. Wow. It's
But,
fun. Like I said,
actually, I love the title though.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
Title.
Yeah, it's cool. Cowgirls versus Pterodactyl. And I know you Stacy, you enjoy the horror films that the protagonists are dominant females. Here you have dominant cowgirls, and yeah.
And this little bitty baby bird. I'm like, oh. You saw her face. She was so serious.
She was serious. She was serious.
I was like, some shit about to happen.
Yeah.
Right about now. It's going down. Then when I saw, I was like, huh? I was like, oh no, put that blade away.
Put it away. Put it away. It's
chill out.
It's not all that. Come on.
Time and you'll be fine.
Oh gosh. Well, the crowdfunding was success. 35 backers. They've raised $400 over their intended goal. That's cool. Like I said, we're laughing at this, but there is an audience that appreciates this stuff, and
I would definitely appreciate this movie. I will appreciate this movie.
Yes,
I will appreciate it.
It's one of those movies that you shake your head, but you don't want to look away. You want to watch this film.
Honestly, it was the same thing like Pterodactyls, Shock and Terror. That's why I related to that, because seeing that pterodactyl, I thought about the birds of Pterodactyls, Shock and Terror, and I'm just shaking my head like, oh my God, these birds are harmless.
Yeah.
But then when they got up close, they actually did something. But I just watched how, like, the cinematography, how slow the cinematography, and did you notice how, like, the dialogue and everything was just out of sync?
Yeah, it's just
like, wait, why is there a pause talking?
Yeah, it's
really?
terrible.
And then, like, when the birds came in, you're just like, why are they moving so slow? You know, so when I saw that bird, I just thought of that, but I was just like, oh shit.
Well, Stacy,
I like Birdemic. I really did.
And that's the interesting thing here. With stop motion, there's actually a craft behind it. You have to design the creatures, and you have to take the picture of whatever it is that you're doing, the claymation, frame by frame by frame. So a 1 minute clip that probably took them 2 months to do. You know, it's a very time consuming process. So that's why I'll consider watching Girls vs. Pterodactyls, because I know that stop motion is very intense, as opposed to CGI that you just sit behind a computer, mold your creature, put it on, add some effects, and there you go. It just doesn't have that quality. I'll compare stop motion with practical effects, because it's hands-on. It has that, even if it looks corny as it does, you gotta appreciate the art.
Oh no, pretty baby bird. He's harmless. Take him as a pet.
Right. I would take him as a pet. But here's the story.
Like, hopefully, I'm looking at this cover. I was like, yeah, hopefully he grows up to be like
those intimidating ones.
Because right about now, I'm just like, what? You pulling out a blade for that? Like, oh, please, put that blade away.
Yeah, it's too exaggerated. Take out a butter knife.
Awesome, though.
Butter its bread.
It's an awesome title. It's an awesome idea. And I will definitely watch that movie and enjoy it.
Exactly. Well, here's the story. The year is 1888, and an enormous prehistoric pterodactyl has been preying upon a small Texas desert town. When her husband is eventually taken by the creature, rebellious schoolteacher Rebecca Crawford decides to take matters into her own hands. she enlists the help of local brothel keeper Debbie Dukes Riley Masterson III and down on her luck sharpshooter Bunny Parker to help track the monster down before it lays more of its dastardly eggs. Okay. The names of those characters are hilarious. That just cements that this is totally B-movie right here.
Yeah. Oh man, that is awesome. Cowgirls versus Pterodactyls. Oh, that is one heck of a showdown right there. I will tell you. Okay, I can't wait to see that showdown. And just like that's a spaghetti movie, kid. I will eat that over some spaghetti and garlic bread. With a glass of red wine, and I would just sit there and just kick my legs up and just like, okay, I'm gonna enjoy this thing.
Absolutely. And if you haven't noticed, the writer-director Joshua Kennedy behind this project, he is also behind the project House of the Gorgon.
Really?
Yes.
Oh shit, do we know what we're in for? Oh man, we know what we're in for.
Oh yeah, and if you haven't seen that trailer, we covered that trailer too. House of the Gorgon. You have to say that voice to take it seriously.
All right. Oh, and that film is so serious, but yet you're just like, oh my, this is gonna be one heck of an experience right here. I feel like Cowgirls versus Pterodactyls is the same way. You look at the trailer like, oh, it's one of those movies.
Segment 2. Exclusive interviews. Director, writer, Aaron Minto and actor, producer, Charles Chudabala. Ugly Sweater Party.
Kicking off segment 2, exclusive interviews, is our conversational interview with director, writer Aaron Minto and actor, producer Charles Chudabala. The film is titled Ugly Sweater Party and is currently available on VOD. The synopsis for this comedy horror is as follows. An ugly sweater party turns into a bloodbath when an evil Christmas sweater possesses one of the partygoers. In this interview, we'll go in depth on this production, Ugly Sweater Party, as well as various aspects of independent horror cinema and production. Without further ado, here's my interview with director-writer Aaron Minto and actor-producer Charles Chudabala. And to start off the interview, beginning with Aaron and with Charles to follow, please provide an origin story, a little bit about yourself, your careers, what got you into creating film, so on and so forth.
I've always been interested in horror movies since a young age. I saw Nightmare on Elm Street was the first movie I ever saw with my dad on VHS. That kind of stoked the fires of, creativity towards horror and kind of ghoulish entertainment. And the first film I ever made was a movie called Standards of Living, which I shot entirely on an iPad. It was the first movie I ever shot entirely on a tablet. And I just shot it on a tablet because that was the only camera I had access to. So I wrote the project for the iPad 2 specifically. And, it was kind of like experimental to do it that way. And Ugly Sweater Party was also somewhat experimental in that I met Charles Chudabala on a project called Choose Their Kill, which was a choose your own adventure slasher series I created for Eli Roth and Crypt TV. And all I had to start with Ugly Sweater Party was just a concept. It was just the main concept of these guys go to a party. One of them has a sweater that's possessed, and there's all these eccentric party guests, and there's just like a massacre and a bunch of comedy happens. And I kept it real loose like that. And with Charles, he was plugged into the indie horror scene. So I basically told him the way I want to do this project is I just want to meet people, and then I just want to write parts for them. And we'll fill out the party and the cast as we meet people. And so that's how I wrote the script for it. It was pretty unconventional. And Charles and I just kind of hit it off on that earlier project. So we were together since the beginning on the genesis of Ugly Sweater Party.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, and thanks for having me in Ugly Sweater Party, Aaron. I actually didn't. Acting was never my first choice when I was growing up. I was actually planning on being a cartoonist. That was my first passion, was making like animated series, and I also used to draw my own comic book series at a very early age, and then even in high school. But then I fell into theater in high school, fell in love with acting, and then was pursuing that until I had a career switch early on in college. You sometimes hear from friends or family members or people that care about you, like, go get a real job. Acting can't sustain you. This industry is unstable. So I ended up switching my major completely from acting and theater to psychology. And I was in that field as a counselor, as a life coach, as a behavior therapist, as a clinician for a while. It was a career that I had, and eventually you get to the point where I know Aaron and I actually we have this in common in kind of serving as a catalyst for what we do now in the industry, is that life is too short, and I didn't want to kick myself wondering what would happen if I didn't act now. All we have is time. All we have is time, and you want to make of it what you can and be creative. And so I took the dive and transitioned out of psychology, and got cast my first horror film in 2014, and I knew I wanted to do nothing but horror. It was my passion. It was something that I've always had an affinity for, and it just grew actually when I was in doing counseling. It was really when I started going to this independent theater by the University of Irvine. It was a campus theater where they showed a lot of independent films there, a lot of indie horror films that would only like play maybe for one weekend. And I knew I wanted to jump into acting, and very, very specifically do nothing but horror movies. And then of course, cut to now, Ugly Sweater Party is an actor's dream. So, and it's Ugly Sweater Party. Who doesn't want to be part of that? So, yeah, it's kind of in a nutshell how I got here. Well,
the both of you, Aaron and Charles, you guys raised some interesting points. Starting with Aaron, the direction in which you begin your career as something as experimental as picking up a tablet and using that as your tool to create your film. And that is something right now that our society, our culture right now, kids have it. I sound old saying this. Kids have it easy these days, but it's true, because everything is at our disposal to create film at low cost. So there's virtually no excuse to create your vision and get your career started.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that, the only thing holding people back is just trying to make something look like it costs $100 million when you don't have $100 million. And you have to be okay with developing your own aesthetic on a lower budget, and just experimenting and trying things, and learning your craft with the tools that you have. And you're right. I mean, there's really no excuse not to get out there, write something, get together with some people that believe in you and believe in the project, and just have fun and try and make something original.
Right. And I was just having this conversation with my wife yesterday. We were talking about creating a short film, and money is the first thing that comes up. I said, wait, if you could create a short film with zero or very low budget, then you're already jumping that hurdle. Once you get in the eyes of the audience or potential investors for your next project, you more or less could work with a budget because you know from the first time what you can and cannot do with zero money.
Sure. Yeah, that's very true. And, jumping into Ugly Sweater Party, this is a very low budget project. And so, we don't have all the money in the world and we don't have all the technology in the world. So the whole goal the whole time was just to have the foot on the gas the entire time, just pack this with as much entertainment, as much craziness as possible, because, that doesn't necessarily cost anything, just to have, some original thoughts or have the actors experiment with crazy stuff or just work real hard on the script, having so many incidents and subplots and interesting things going on. We just wanted the energy just to be nonstop in this movie and not to let the budget restrict that.
Right. And Charles, I really can adapt with your origin story. In particular, the part where you mentioned that families and friends close to you would advise to delve into the regular 9-to-5 worker bee type of mentality. And I find that to be a real handicap, especially with young visionaries, content creators who really want to explore their craft, but at the same time, they hear the same things from their parents.
Yeah, I mean, it is a barrier because part of being an artist and as children and my job, actually, I worked with children for a very, very long time. And as a child psychologist, I would have to say probably the main prescribed treatment is reinforcing the idea that there are no limitations, because children don't have those boundaries. That's why there's even in child development, there's this idea called object permanence, which is where the child eventually learns to visualize that there's something on the other side of that wall versus that there's no wall there. That's why a child may bump their head in this world, not knowing that there's a boundary there. And, when you can expand your mind, you're able to create without boundaries. I think we're all meant to do that in a way. It kind of limits our development in a way, and it stifles so much creativity and the potential to be able to offer back in this world, your skills, your gifts. And imagine if everybody just was able to do what they wanted to do. And that's kind of like, my message in starting back on and jumping in full force was to be able to not only prove to myself and my friends and family that I could do what I love to do, but also just honoring what I'm allowed to do, versus the voices out there that tell you that you can't. And when you're young, you don't always feel so empowered. And I grew up at a time, I think, where it's a lot different now, in a sense, because you now have, a 14-year-old who could be their own CEO, of their own empire.
It's true.
And they know it, so as a child, like, I didn't have, access to a lot of role models like that who could say, hey, start your own YouTube channel, or, hey, here's a different path. And it's exciting. It's exciting because now, in a way, I get to make the kind of art that I want to make the brand that I want to make, tell the stories that I want to make. And also, with Aaron, alongside Hunter Johnson, and in our circle of indie horror and creatives, we are carving a path, for ourselves to where there may not otherwise be a template for our roadmap in how we're navigating the success of Ugly Sweater Party and projects hereinafter.
Right now, we're living in a great time, and you make a great point. And even for video game, just a little sidetrack here, even for video games, you see people a young age really making a name for themselves and really putting up money in their pocket, just playing games all day. Who would have thought this would never have happened 10, 15 years ago? So if you utilize technology and social media for the best, it definitely works in your favor.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
And for indie filmmaking, we have Ugly Sweater Party. We know the complexities involved with creating film as a filmmaker, but what are the other complexities involved with the marketing engine, getting the product, the end product, in front of audiences, distributors, so on and so forth, beginning with Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, like, when we set out to make this project, we definitely wanted to have a creative team that were interested in supporting the product because they really believed in it. So one of the biggest things is this cast is huge, and a lot of the cast is very well known in the indie horror circuit and beyond. So having your cast just post about it, use all their platforms, engage their audience, share the trailer, share the poster, or share the behind-the-scenes photos and the reviews, really does wonders. I mean, it just opens it up to so many people that otherwise may never find the movie, because we can't have billboards on the side of freeways or anything. It's
Right.
all kind of word of mouth and pushing it based on all the people who worked on it and who ultimately, and if someone ends up enjoying it, they end up sharing it most of the time. So that's usually the way that it goes with an independent film like this. It's thankfully we have a great cast of people who all believe in the project and who are pushing it onto their audiences.
Yeah, I 100% second what Aaron said. We do have, we have a huge cast, and they're all so excited about it. It energizes them. You can't help but be excited when you watch this movie. It makes you want to tell somebody about it. I think we want it to go viral, like an infection in a way. And one of the things that we laugh about is we feel like people can't help like this film. They want to hate it, or they want to not like it. Even some reviewers, but it grows on you. And I think this film, I mean, the name is magical. Ugly Sweater Party, and I think the more people talk about it, the more it'll spread. And it used to be kind of seen as a failure if the option to self-distribute was like on one of your top priorities, or top choices. And it's like now it's not really looked at it that way. I think for us, we feel empowered that we're free. Like we can explore other avenues because we're able to self-distribute, in a way. So
filmmakers starting off their career, there's always that instance that they need to acquire a name actor or actress in their film. But in many cases, they have to go through SAG and all these other complexities involved in getting a named actor. And I hear it a couple of times that if you have a named actor in your film, in your first film particularly, that works in your favor because it's their name value, the face value, and unfortunately, it's also their social media followers that really promote the film. What are your opinions on that, Aaron?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, thankfully with Ugly Sweater Party, I mean, like I said, I wrote the script with people in mind. It wasn't like some, let's get a name to fit this role, even though they don't really fit, just to sell the movie. Mm-hmm. So, I met with Felissa Rose, who's famous for Sleepaway Camp, among other things, because Hunter Johnson and Charles had worked with her on a previous movie they did called To Jennifer. And, we just hit it off. And I already had the character in mind for her. And it just happened to meld perfectly with her personality. So I wrote that part for her, the same way that I wrote the part of Declan Rains for Sean Whalen, who's known for People Under the Stairs, among many, many other credits. So I think you can get into trouble if you are just putting an actor into a role that they don't really fit, but you think maybe it'll sell better.
Right.
In this instance, it was actually written for everybody, so it worked very well.
This is a perfect example of everything blending perfectly together. Having the roles written really, really well for Sean Whalen, for Felissa Rose, and also just again the perfect blend of it marketing itself. I mean, fans of Felissa Rose and Sleepaway Camp are excited to see that she's back at camp, and Ugly Sweater Party takes place at a camp, so it's exciting. And people who love Sean Whalen, by the way, his performance is so good in this, are really surprised to see how much he's in this film and the presence that he has. And he's energizing his fan base right now with his excitement about the film. I remember we gave him a private screening prior to the film, months before the film was even at its final stages, just to show it to him and get his reaction, and he laughed. I remember I was yeah, we gave him a private screening. I was really, really nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, what is he gonna think? And he was laughing, and that's all you can ask for is your cast to energize their fan base, and people are excited that Felissa and Sean are in this.
Ugly Sweater Party does invoke that feel of a throwback era, tossing in comedy, the practical effects, special effects, putting all this together. How did it come together from the script to the screen beginning, Aaron?
Yes. Well, we had a really great small crew. Richard Calderon, he did the practical effects for the movie, and he also did costumes and makeup, and we shot it at some sets that he designed. He was definitely a key facilitator in making this look as good as it does. And then Paul Stephen Edwards, our director of photography, he has the same kind of love for low budget horror, grindhouse, 80s stuff. So me and him were just like on the same wavelength in terms of shot compositions and just references. So I think everybody just like loved the material so much and knew that we were just there to make it as fun as possible without pretense. So everybody just like did multiple jobs too. It was a very small crew. So, I mean, we all just kind of threw in and just went for it. And it was just like, it kind of was like a big party a lot of the time, although it was really, really well organized and everybody treated their roles with respect. But I think everybody just like, there's so much serious horror out right now, which is great. But, we just wanted to make something fun. It's like, that's just kind of like a throwback to like, sleepaway camp and stuff like that, where it's just like, you don't know what's going to happen from minute to minute when you watch this thing. And it's going to take crazy twists and turns, and we're going to take you on a ride that's going to be really fun and really surprising and just not going to be very serious. And I think we were all just kind of relieved to kind of make something like that. It was just a lot of fun.
Right.
And the music also, I want to touch on the music. The team that did it, that composed it, that wrote music for it, that catchy theme song in the movie, the Ugly Sweater Party theme song, those lyrics were written by Aaron, and then music was then provided by Mo Blunt and I forgot who did the vocals on
and
that.
Minnie, yeah.
Minnie, yes. I mean, you could just see the fun from every angle of this production, and then even in the car ride with Cliff and Jody, there's that really pop Christmassy tune by Anthony Honore, and that song's literally on the radio. Just is getting radio airplay in the UK right now.
Oh wow,
that's cool.
Yeah, that's huge news for Anthony Honore right now. So there's a lot of fun in every corner of this film.
Oh wow, that's cool. And Aaron, you make a good point with the horror being having a lot of seriousness to it, especially with the supernatural and psychological dramas that are popping up. And I do see over the past couple of years, this year's almost ending, past couple of years, there seems to be a new trend here, a new shift with filmmakers really going to the aesthetics of yesteryear with the 80s visuals. And it's evident when I've seen Ugly Sweater Party with the practical effects, the special effects. It really has that throwback era. You see that this is a new shift that we're going to?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I just think that, the filmmakers who are making these movies, myself included, just have a lot of nostalgia for, the video rental experience and like getting these like crazy movies that, a lot of the formula wasn't necessarily like kind of locked down for a lot of these movies that we're kind of referencing. And there was always some sort of fun randomness to it. And I think that random experience, that experience of renting a movie with cool cover art and not knowing, like there was no IMDb or anything. It was just like, I don't know what this is going to be. This could be a total, clinker, or this could be like amazing.
Right.
And just like, just that like energetic experience of almost like, a sugar rush at midnight. You're just like watching this going like, what am I watching? How did this get made? Like, who are these people? Like, that was almost as interesting as the movie itself.
Right.
You just be like, where did this thing come from? You know what I mean? So I think, like what portal did this like fall out of? So I think like there is like kind of like a nostalgia for that kind of entertainment that people are kind of putting out there, because a lot of the horror that's mainstream now, which is great, is so polished and so serious.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, has like this deeper kind of connotation to it. So there's kind of like a little bit of a nostalgia for the little guys, the low budget ones, to kind of like, let's bring back that kind of like that randomness, that kind of excitement where you don't know the formula. You don't even know what movie you're going to be watching. You know,
right.
And like that's part of the fun for me.
Yeah, Charles is laughing there. Yeah, you can relate to that, Charles.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I grew up with movies that have rewatch value, replayability. You know, Pee-wee's Big Adventure was always on my deck. You know, VHS. You know, Christmas Story, obviously every single year. Brady Bunch. I mean, movies that you could watch like over and over and over again. I mean, and you know the laugh is coming. You've seen it before, but you just laugh every single time because it's that randomness that Aaron's talking about. I think we created that. I mean, there are people already rewatching Ugly Sweater Party 4 or 5 times right now. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to. Maybe they're thinking next time it'll be different. I don't know.
It's so true. It just reminds me of when I was with 9-8 years old, be in the horror section in the video rental place and just looking at all the cover art and just pleading with my sister to, hey, can you rent this movie, please? I want to see it. And it was always a treat. Unfortunately, we don't have those type of services now. But with the streaming, you already know what you're gonna be in for. When you just pop on Netflix, you see a trailer, like, oh, you give it a pass. It wasn't like that back in the day.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think some people are upset when a movie doesn't give them exactly what they want, whereas I'm kind of like excited when a movie is something I could have never predicted. You know what I mean? So that's definitely what we were trying to create. Like, you would never be able to predict where this movie goes ever. If you know, at any minute, you have no idea where it's going to go.
Charles, your role in this film, give some insight about this and the sweater in particular. How does this affect your character? What's up with that?
Well, there's a lot of like symbolism and metaphors in this movie if you really dice it and take a deeper look. But for me, my interpretation of the sweater, it's like the ego in a way. It brings out what's already there that could have been if you just allowed yourself to give in to that other part of yourself. Obviously not I mean, Cliff is not a killer, so there is a real possession there. But Cliff wants to be more confident. He wants to be able to walk differently. He wants to be able to approach Susan, confidently and ask her out and be able to have a second chance and to be that suave character. And the sweater kind of gives him that opportunity in a way, and it affects everyone around him in a way too, obviously. So I think it's almost like if I can make a reference to Stephen King's Needful Things, and this is a kind of a stretch where it's like the devil comes to town, or even Horns with Daniel Radcliffe, where the sweater just starts to change the dimension by where it's at. But of course, the wearer of the sweater, which is Cliff's character, he goes through an evolution, as many of the characters in this film do. They go through a patchwork, if you will, of sweater making, of a mishmash of different colors, of different parts, different textures. It's all part of it. And it was constructed perfectly.
That's an interesting point. I would have to see the film again to get that content. I was leaning towards the comedic effect of the sweater and especially the innuendos that are filled throughout the film. Like, oh guys, these guys are hilarious here. It reminds me of Porky's in a way.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it definitely has that like kind of like 80s sex comedy kind of vibe. But, we kind of twist it where all the nudity is like male nudity. Like you never know what you're going to get. Like it just keeps reinventing itself as it goes. You know what I mean?
Yes, that is so true. And Aaron, creating this film, very creative aspect to come up with an ugly sweater as the antagonizing force. I haven't seen something like that I think the last wacky thing I've seen that parallels that would be in the Japanese market, where hair extensions are possessed and the wearer would get possessed by a demon. Was this like the first choice, a sweater, especially with the holiday season coming about? That was perfectly timed.
Yeah, I mean, it really had nothing to do with timing or anything. It was when I was doing costume choices for my first film, Standards of Living, I was just go to a lot of thrift stores, and there was all these weird sweaters and articles of clothing there. And I would always wonder, like, where did this thing come from? Who made this? Who wore this? How did it get to this thrift store?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of like just evolved into the ugly sweater, like for Christmas. And like, I just wanted to make something that was really kitschy and loud and colorful and brash. And that is what an ugly sweater is. So all it just kind of like, everything I wanted to do just kind of like fit with an ugly sweater. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I got the concept for it. It was just kind of like, what if there was this weird article of clothing that had a history? What if that history could affect you?
And that's part of being the creative writer right there. I can relate to that. Sitting on a train, I'll watch somebody, and instead of looking at my mobile device and figure out, where's this guy going? What is his lifestyle about? What is he up to? And you create a backstory just about looking at the person sitting across from you.
Definitely, yeah. That's exactly it.
And Charles, in this role, the role that you portray in Ugly Sweater Party, what is one thing that really sticks out for you reading the script and absorbing this character's intellect? Something that jumps out to you right away?
The dance in the movie, and people who've seen the movie know what I'm talking about. It was the first thing that we shot, but for whatever reason, it's the first thing that jumps out of my mind, because number one, I love to dance, and people who knew me at that time knew that I was a dance fitness instructor, and I'm still certified. I don't know if I might need to renew it. Actually, I haven't taught a class in a minute, but it was it was a moment for both for Cliff and for me to just let loose, and I don't know, I think it packs fun in the movie, and the energy of that scene kicks off the movie in a big way, along with Jody and what's going on in the bathroom at the same time. It's a good storm, but I think it shows. I think that shows Cliff's real self. Anything that's going on in that fantasy is the guy that he wishes he could be. And also, it was just so much fun. That was the first scene that we shot of the entire film. It was a small set. We were laughing so hard that day that it was like, okay, this is what we're in for. This is the type of movie we're going to make. And it's just going to get weirder and more fun. It's going to feel like a party. The first time I got to really wear a G-string in a film. So I think it was a G-string. There was 2 different pairs of underwear. I think I chose the smaller of the 2. So
yeah, I think you did.
I think Absolutely. I did.
Yeah, I actually, since that was the first thing we shot, I actually edited that together first, and I showed it to the rest of the cast before we shot anything else. So everybody knew the tone of the movie. Everybody, their eyes popped open. They were like, "Oh, this is a lot of fun. This is what we're in for." And it let everybody know that it's okay to go big and have fun with this. We're trying to be ridiculous. That scene was real important in kind of setting the tone for everybody.
It's okay to be ridiculous. I love it.
And Aaron, creating a feature film does have its complexities. So what are the complexities involved, especially with getting big name cast on board, getting the shots correctly, getting everything set up on the day of? And what advices would you give to somebody who want to create their first film in such an experimental way as you have started your career?
Yeah, I would say the hardest part about low budget filmmaking is not the creative aspect. It's more of the maintenance and the scheduling of just events to happen. So it's basically we were shooting out in the middle of nowhere in Idlewild, California. So just getting all of the cast the right directions to find this place was really hard. Making sure the refrigerator was stocked with food in the middle of nowhere for a certain amount of time was very difficult. Organizing, when do we eat in this schedule, because we had such a tight schedule and all that kind of stuff. So I would say what I did for my work was I always made sure I had a shot list. I always made sure I knew exactly what I wanted. There was not one chance for indecision on this movie because the days were so packed. One day we shot 25 pages, which is ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. So, but the only way we were able to do that was that I broke everything down in a very specific shot list, and I worked really close with the DP, and we just went, this is what we're going to do. And like, it was just like ticking off the boxes. It's like, got that. And thankfully the cast were so prepared that we never had any problems. I mean, everybody knew their lines. Everybody was 100% all in. So I honestly think that for low budget filmmakers, or for filmmakers in general, it is casting people that you trust, that are going to do the work on their end to support your work on your end, but you have to do your work too. You have to have a shot list, I think, is crucial. You don't have to have storyboards, but just to know the direction, unless you have a loose set and you have all the time in the world and it's just like an experimental thing. But if you got to make your days, then, know all your shots ahead of time. And, that frees you up to, like, if you want to change something, you can do it on the fly because you already have a plan. And you're just like, okay, so I know how that'll work if we change that. But I just think it's a lot of preparation, and and Charles knows too, because he, helped as a producer on this, him and Hunter, just organizing a caravan of people to live out in a campsite was like the hardest part, you know what I mean, of the movie.
Right, yeah. And perhaps if a storyboard would have been utilized, Charles would have drafted up some nice animation boxes, right?
Yeah, seriously. Now, I didn't know he was a cartoonist. What the heck? Come on, Charles.
I was. Oh, man. Out of practice. But no, it's coming back.
Oh, wait. So now that I think about it, Charles, did you actually draw that caricature on the guy's shirt? Was that your handiwork right there?
No. No. Who drew that, Aaron?
That was Richard Calderon. That was our
my
production designer. Yeah.
I wish I did. I wish that was my artwork. That is like, wherever that is, we got to keep that. That should be in a museum with a bow on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Or it could be for crowdfunding, which leads me to Charles, working as an actor and also producer for horror films, and looking at your IMDb. And in one in particular, I just got to point out, you worked on Malvolio, the Queen of Screams. We just recently had her on the show a few weeks back.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I love Jen Nangle. She's one of my best friends. I'm actually a producer on season 2 of Malvolio, the Queen of Screams. And I also produced the Queen of Screams Halloween special as well.
Cool. Look at that. A small world, a small circle here. Which also leads to the question, jumping into the horror genre as an actor, producer, what are your opinions on the taboo, let's say, of crowdfunding? Most filmmakers agree with it, others don't. Is that such an importance to really getting the project off the ground?
I think it depends. I think it depends because speaking of which, I just directed my first short film last week. And what was it, last week? This week? I don't know. When you apparently when you direct, you lose time. Is that what happens, Aaron?
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what day I'm in, but I crowdfunded that. I did a GoFundMe for it. I was very transparent about what it was for, about creating art and supporting it. I think, and we met. I made 90% of the goal, so to me that's a win for my first GoFundMe. And but the idea being that we're pressing play no matter what. Like, no matter what, that's my mentality. I never started, and this again. Like, this is just my situation. I can't speak for anyone else who is crowdfunding for different amounts or for different reasons. But my mentality is, if you're going to do a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter, Just be prepared to deliver no matter what. Because if anything, being an indie filmmaker has taught us, like we were talking about earlier, there are no excuses. You could pick up an iPad and make a film. The first film that I've ever produced was Hunter Johnson, who plays Jody in Ugly Sweater Party. He directed a film called To Jennifer, which was shot completely on the iPhone 6 Plus. And we did that film in 8 days. And so, like, I'm not wired for things not to come to fruition. As a child, if I want to make a comic book series, it's going to get done. Like, I just got to sit down and take the time. You modify your resources, and that's what you learn. I think that's the biggest skill, as a producer is working within your means to still get the best production. And we are all highly skilled at this point. Aaron and me and Hunter being, working as a team and producing Ugly Sweater Party. There's somebody gave us a high budget to do something. We could make that go far because we're able to make things go far on a very, very low budget. But I support and share. And by the way, like I feel like sometimes people want to support, but they don't know if they can support financially. Like, what the biggest support you can do sometimes is just sharing.
Right.
And what we're learning in the Twitter sphere right now is sharing goes a long way.
Exactly.
Like, I can never reach somebody's page if you don't share it to their page. And I tell people all the time, if you can give, if you can share, even better. Just share and spread the word. That tells me that you support. And support the arts.
and for Aaron, you have an unconventional approach in creating the script. Going back to your first film, you created it on a mobile device. Do you think the filmmakers these days are too generic? They want to be the next Blumhouse or so on and so forth, that they are not thinking outside the box here? And especially when it comes to story is such an important factor in horror films.
I don't necessarily know what everybody's trying to do. I do think you get into trouble if you are trying to match an aesthetic too much without your own voice. If a company already has, a series of filmmakers doing things with a certain style or a certain voice, it may benefit you to do something a little different. And they may be like, oh, we want to add you to our wheelhouse because we don't have that yet. And, the way things are, it's like everything's always standard until someone breaks the mold. And I'd rather break the mold than try and copy what's popular. You know what I mean? So I just think that finding your own voice is and being true to what you really want to do as a filmmaker, I think, is the most important part. I mean, you might as well work a 9-to-5 job if all you're doing as a writer or filmmaker is just emulating other filmmakers and you don't even have a voice. You know what I mean? You got to have your own voice in there, and you can't be afraid to explore what you really like and what you really want to say.
That is absolutely true. And that falls perfectly with Ugly Sweater Party. It's unorthodox in its approach. It has comedic elements, it has horror elements, and most of all, what I appreciate is the practical effects. I think that's one area that is slowly declining in favor of CGI or computer effects, computerized blood. There's so many great artists out there that create these prosthetics and make things look so real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, if you ask someone like who's into horror, like what their favorite horror movies are, I mean, they always, there's a reason that like The Thing or Cronenberg's The Fly or Nightmare on Elm Street, have considered or have continued to be people's favorite movies. And then a lot of it has to do with that hands-on physical approach to the artistry, the craft, and the effects. I mean, these things feel like they're in the frame. They're real. These are real creations. And, the human eye is just so good at discerning, what's actually real and created versus what's made on a computer, and the computer effects are great too. But I think a melding of both of them is the perfect union.
Right.
You know, is using them as tools to tell the best story, to give the audience the most pleasure. You know.
Right. And I make the joke all the time. I compare the werewolves from Twilight with the American werewolf in London. I say, look how we went downhill when it comes to werewolves.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a topic for a different discussion there.
You know, the human eye is also, I mean, we're so intuitive too, in terms of, I think that one thing we've lost is, or that is somehow getting lost sometimes, is the power of editing.
Right.
And what computers give you the chance to do is to not edit. You can just have someone turn into a werewolf while they're walking at you without a cut.
Right.
And, you know, you just do it digitally. But like the thing is that American Werewolf is so powerful because the editing is so good. They cut on every change and they show you what, you know, and it's like, you know, it's like they tell you what to look at and you feel it more and you experience it with every cut. And what I think what some filmmakers get wrong is, oh, we don't have to cut anymore, so people will think it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know, it actually just looks more fake if you don't, you know, dictate what we should be looking at. And I think that I honestly think that if more filmmakers cut like they were using practical effects, even if they were still using digital, it would sell it a lot more. Right.
That's so true. And to close out our interview, one final question for Charles, and then we have an open platform. Charles, in your opinion, what aspects of horror do you feel that it's an open playing field and filmmakers haven't really tapped up on it? Case in point, Ugly Sweater Parties, it's a great concept that has comedic elements, is a throwback to an era which is nostalgic. In your opinion, is there some place where filmmakers have to tap into?
That's a really good question. The genre and the playing field is changing so often and transforming so often day by day, year by year, that my answer would have been different 3 months ago. You know, I would have said, you know, that we need to focus more on a Hitchcockian style of suspense and psychological versus showing and now, you know, I would say that I'm excited because we have an opportunity to just invent something new in the genre, mix genres, you know, together, and do and tell, you know, horror in a different way. I like my horror movies scary, and one of the things that I have experienced less often, especially within the last couple of years, is that scare factor. Mm-hmm. When a film scares me, I talk about it. I'm like, oh man, did you see the scene in, you know, and I'll name the title. I'm like, I have to tell you about it because it's memorable because I got scared. It may not even mean that I like the plot so much or, you know, the film was any good or whatnot, but it takes a lot to scare us now. Right. And we are becoming a lot more desensitized to, I think, you know, possibly maybe it's the CGI that we're seeing so often, or the jump scares that are intentionally patterned in beat by millisecond as some type of a new formula that I'm waiting. I'm waiting, and I'm excited to see. There's a lot of talented indie filmmakers coming up right now, and with the changing platform of VOD and self-distribution, we're seeing a lot more freedom to make less of a tentpole and allow artists to just play and come up with nightmarish things. I mean, Pan's Labyrinth for me had some terrifying imagery and some terrifying moments and set pieces in that film, and it looked like a kid's film. It was not a kid's film. And that, to me, for its time, shocked me. Right. It was rated R, and like I'd like to see something like that again. It was very unusual. I didn't know it would be a horror movie when I first saw it. I went to go see it, to be quite honest, because I am a Latino. So
Right.
I went to go see it. I thought, whoa, what's this movie playing at AMC theaters? That's this Latino movie. It's kind of weird. I don't know what this is. I couldn't get a read from the trailers, and I was pleasantly surprised, and it became, I think it still holds up.
Right. And good thing that you mentioned Guillermo del Toro's work, because as a Latino myself, I feel that in every culture, there's just this untapped area, especially with these stories that we're brought up with of the cuco or something else that hasn't been explored yet in horror cinema. So I'm, just as you said, I'm waiting for that film as well. That's, okay, it's a different perspective in storytelling. To close out the interview, it's an open platform, beginning with Aaron, and Charles, of course, followed right after. Plug in Ugly Sweater Party, your upcoming projects, those that you can share, of course, and your social media handles.
Yeah, so Ugly Sweater Party is now available to rent or buy streaming on Amazon exclusively. And you can just find that by typing my name into Amazon, or just finding the link on our social media pages. I'm at Aaron Mento on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And the newest project I'm working on is I'm collaborating with Melissa Rose again on a 80s slasher that I wrote called Survival High. And she's playing this evil teacher that puts a group of captive students through a curriculum of death and torture. So it's going to be a wild ride. So that's the next project I'm working on with Melissa Rose.
I never get tired of Aaron giving that synopsis. Survival High.
That sounds interesting.
I never get tired of hearing that. That's curriculum, death, and torture. I love it. Yeah, you can find me, Charles Chudabala, on every social media platform. I think my Instagram handle is Charlie Chuda, but if you type in Charles Chudabala, you'll see me there. Yes, Ugly Sweater Party currently out, Amazon Prime Video. Also starring in, or one of the stars of Escape from Ensenada, which is on iTunes and Amazon Prime right now, which stars Devaney Pinn, Adriana Fonseca. And then I have some films coming out next year. For Jennifer is the quadrilogy of To Jennifer, and my character comes back and reprises his role in that film, as well as a couple of other films that I star in, such as Serena Waits' Irrational Fear, and yeah, and hopefully pre-production on Ugly Sweater Party 2. hopefully the sequel.
Oh, was that an inside secret there, Aaron? We see the sequel?
I mean, I would definitely like to do a sequel for sure, eventually, and I think I speak for Charles as well, that we love hearing from people who've seen the movie. Mm-hmm. So if you've seen it, even if you didn't like it or you liked it, whatever, if you have any questions about it or any reactions, like, we love to hear all that stuff, because, we're so kind of like disconnected now, mm-hmm. It's like, it's hard to like, we have this great social media platform, but sometimes it actually adds more distance. So we like connecting with people and talking about projects and stuff like that. So please feel free to reach out and let us know what you think of the movie.
Oh, that's great to hear. I really enjoy hearing filmmakers opening up their social media for their fans and getting feedback, whether it's good or bad, and helps evolve the process. I take it, it's kind of negative when you have social media and you don't use it for that benefit. So it's great to hear that.
Absolutely. And I think that I think we need to get away from this whole, like, is something certified rotten or certified fresh, and should that be the determination of whether or not I should watch a movie? Mm-hmm. I think that movies have more variance than that.
Right. Oh, yes.
I love so many movies that are certified rotten.
Right.
I love certified fresh. So it's like, I think that, a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I think that doesn't really tell you whether you should watch a movie or not. I think that there's so many variations that are happening in a lot of movies that make them worthwhile to watch, even if ultimately you might not be like, oh, that was perfect or, whatever. It's like, I think that we need to get away from this. Either the movie's perfect or it's not.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that would be great if we could get away from that.
Right. It's a very interesting point because we mentioned that horror is art, and art is subjective. You go walk into a museum and look at a painting, and the person next to you would have a totally different understanding of that very same painting.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. And I mean, watching something, it gives you an opportunity to converse with somebody else about it, and you get to see what are your differences of opinion. Where you guys stand the same on something. I mean, it just gives you something to talk about. It's it's not all praise and all negativity. I think stuff in the middle is interesting because that's where you have the best conversations with people. Right,
absolutely. Thank you once again, Mr. Aaron Mento, Mr. Charles Chudabala, for your time for this interview, speaking about filmmaking, horror, and of course, Ugly Sweater Party. Congratulations on the release, and look forward to speaking with you guys once again with your upcoming projects in the new year.
Thank you very much. I had a great time.
Segment 2. Exclusive interviews. Directors, writers, David Guglielmo, Nick Chakwin. Hospitality.
There was a time we had to turn people away. Both rooms were booked up. Someone was in the kitchen having a meal. People were stopping in. So what brings you back around after all this time?
Our second doubleheader interview is a conversational interview with directors David Guglielmo and Nick Chakwin. David Guglielmo and Nick Chakwin both attended the School of Visual Arts here in New York City, where they majored in directing and won numerous awards for their short films. Upon graduating, they moved to Los Angeles, where Nick was hired to pen pop star Sia's feature screenplay and soon to be her directorial debut. David worked his way up the ladder as a casting professional with over 20 films and TV credits in 2 years, and started his own company as a casting director. Together, Nick and David co-wrote, produced, and directed the feature film No Way to Live, which released by Gravita's Ventures and is now available on Hulu and Amazon Prime. Dennis DeMori of Paper Magazine called it a Southern Gothic noir with more twists than a pretzel. A film threat hailed as a new kind of movie experience. For their second feature as writers/directors, they teamed up with 2017 Academy Award nominated producer Howard Barish to make Hospitality, a contained thriller starring Emmanuel Chidiki and Sam Trammell. Coming-of-age horror screenplay, The Young has received glowing praise from the Blacklist and is currently under development. Without further ado, here is my conversational interview with David Guglielmo and Nick Chakwin, which will be discussing various aspects of indie filmmaking, horror, and of course, hospitality. And to kick off the interview, beginning with Mr. Chakwin, please provide an origin story, a little bit about yourself and what got you involved in creating film.
Sure. Well, I guess like some other filmmakers, I was given a a video camera when I was maybe in middle school or so. And I guess I just started out filming friends of mine. But what I loved the most was, cutting together the footage and, editing and then showing it to them. And then I kind of just realized that I thought I loved editing the most. So I would make these videos and show them to my family and friends. And I guess that translated into writing scenes and then shooting those with my friends. And then I realized that you could go to school for film editing. And so that's all I wanted to do. So from there, I went to film school in New York, School of Visual Arts, which is where I met David. And I guess, that's where we met. We started by studying directing, and we didn't work together at that point, but we were friends, and we would both make our own short films. So to speed things up, I guess, after we both graduated as directing majors, I moved to Los Angeles, and he moved shortly after. And we, basically, when he moved to LA, we were under the same roof. He crashed on my couch for a couple weeks, and that's when we started writing together, feature screenplays at that point. And we just went from there. I guess our first film, No Way to Live, was, I guess, in that first year, one of the first. I think we wrote maybe 3 or 4 features that first year together, and that's the one that we loved the most. And we just, sent it around, and it kind of, I guess, the rest is history.
Cool. Thank you for that one. School of Visual Arts, that's right here in the Village, right? In New York City?
Yeah, are you in New York, Ken?
Yes, we're in New York.
Oh, okay. So, we're both from the East Coast. I'm from Fort Lee, New Jersey, and Nick is from Connecticut, Norwalk, Connecticut. So we're East Coasters ourselves.
Ah, cool. Mr. Guglielmo, a little bit about yourself too, your origin story.
Yeah. So Nick told you some of it. I've been a film buff my whole life. Ever since I was 8 years old, I knew I wanted to make movies, and I knew I wanted to direct them and write them. But I wasn't very. I was more interested in learning the history of film. So I became a film historian, a self-proclaimed film historian, watching everything from different countries and genres and time periods. And I didn't actually pick up a camera until they told me I needed to make a movie to get into film school. So I made this little tiny thing about a bunch of kids in the woods who find a bag of money and kill each other. And that's kind of been the theme of all the films that I've made so far. So in college, Nick and I were friends. I moved out to LA. No Way to Live was a passion project that had a very hard time getting financed due to the nature of it. It was a little provocative, and people weren't sure about it. So we decided to raise the money ourselves with the help of Nick's wife. We all kind of hit the ground running, and every time we got a couple of $1,000, we'd go out and shoot. And we pieced the movie together that way over a span of 6 months, not knowing if the actors were going to be unavailable. I mean, it was all a huge risk, but it paid off, and we finished our film. And I think it took us about 4 years from writing the script to actually having distribution on the movie. So that was a really long journey. And then Hospitality was kind of the opposite of that. We wrote the script in 4 days, and a week later it got greenlighted, and then we were filming a month later, and then we shot for only 13 days, and then a week after that we had a cut to show. So that was maybe a reaction to how long No Way to Live took, but it was just a kind of creative burst of energy that, before we knew it, we had our second film.
Interesting. And this is a general question of beginning with Mr. Chakwin. Seeing how you guys were, I'll say ambitious to start your first project with a feature film. Most filmmakers are hesitant, and they prefer to get their feet wet with short films. Do you think this was a good choice with the lessons learned from the first production, and now Hospitality gaining quicker momentum in production?
Well, I do think it was the right choice. I think that I've always wanted to make feature films. I mean, both of us made short films. We did in college. And but the thing is with actually both of us is that our short films were never that short. The last short film I made, I think, was almost 40 minutes long. So I was always inching closer and closer to making a feature. And so by the point of graduation, I had my first feature script already written, and I was just itching to, kind of get into that format. I just really wanted to, those are the movies that I fell in love with. And that's the format that I just felt natural writing. And so it was only natural. And, at that point, when you're out of film school, we have so much passion. That's all we wanted to do is make a feature film. We just had our, we were just dead set on that. So it was everything we worked for every day. So we didn't really ever even think about making a short, not to discredit that path. Mm-hmm. But that's not what we had in mind ever.
Yeah, I think that basically there's just right now there's no outlet for it really. We want it to be seen. We want the movie to be, commercially available. And the short format's great. I mean, I love, however long it takes to tell a story is great. But right now, I don't think there's a market for it. So we want to be in the business of making movies. We don't just want to, make little art projects, although they can be very fulfilling and they can be great. I mean, we just watched a short from a filmmaker named Erica Dasher that blew us away. And now, I always see stuff that blows me away in the short format, but, this movie is particularly rewarding for us, Hospitality, because it's our first film that's getting a theatrical release. And maybe we're old school, but we still make movies for that format. We want to see them on the big screen. We want to sit there with an audience, and we want to share, reactions with strangers.
Yeah, that's a very great goal. Also, for Hospitality, the one of the aspects that really resonates from this film is the story. And I find that's one area that is somewhat lacking, especially from Hollywood. They always opt for eye candy over story, and you guys really emphasize the protagonist, her character arc, a little bit about her and the evolution of this storyline.
It all starts for me at least with the character. Nick and I spoke about the character of Donna. I like kind of preloading a story, and having all this backstory way before the movie starts. And we did something similar with No Way to Live. And you don't really understand who these characters are fully until later on in the movie, when you realize that everything they've been doing has been informed by that backstory. I like that tool, because that's life. You meet someone and you don't know what kind of baggage they have, and you don't know what has led them to this point. So it started with, the woman with the past and trying to get away from her past and catching up with her. And then, same thing goes for everyone. When Cam shows up, I mean, he's got his own backstory, and you're not quite sure where he's coming from. And, we don't like to outline our scripts, and not that there's anything wrong with doing that. But I find personally that, if I outline, I end up needing to fit those characters into these places where normally maybe they wouldn't go. It becomes contrived because I'm kind of moving the chess pieces around. I like for the characters to tell me what they're going to do. And I didn't know if Cam was a good guy or a bad guy. When he showed up in the script, I had no clue. He had to show me. And he turned out to be somewhere in between. Story, the thing is, look, we love film as a visual medium, and we're very, very into, aesthetics. However, I think the general public, when they watch a movie, they're really focused on the acting and the story first and foremost. So those two things need to be there. And thankfully, our script resonated with these wonderful actors, and that was an aspect that we didn't have to worry about.
Well, you have a small cast. You have one particular location. Is there a huge benefit, especially when creating a feature film, not to go over the budget and really craft where scenes are output, limiting the casting, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that David and I have always felt that our limitations actually lead to a lot of creativity. By nature, having one location, we made it that way because we wanted it, not because of budget. We wanted a contained story where you get to really know the house inside and out. And I think because you only have so many rooms, it becomes a creative challenge that we really love stepping up to, where it's like we're in the kitchen. How do we show the kitchen in a way we haven't seen the kitchen before? How do we make this interesting? And that's what everyone should be thinking with every shot, no matter what. But I don't know if that's always the case. So we really took it as something that we embraced. And, we like writing for a smaller budget. It's like, it feels good to us. It's within our means, and we know we can really focus on story and characters. And when we want to ramp up, we ramp up. But, it's not robots beating each other up or whatever,
Hopefully not. Hopefully the set is pretty lively.
Yeah.
Mr. Guglielmo, I'm watching the film. For the first time, I usually watch when I review a film, I watch it more than once, but the first time it was very self-explanatory. I enjoyed the camera angles in particular, the subtle hints, and to what Mr. Chadwick has elaborated a few seconds ago about the emphasizing a room, particularly a kitchen. Case in point, when camera angles was hinting on the wall, and I said, later on in the scene in the film, we know why the wall was incorporated into the shot. The question here is, how important is it to really convey as a director the visual narrative? You see, when you write something on script, you have it in mind, but to really convey to the audience, you're giving them those subtle hints.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's very astute of you to notice that that we had the vent in the frame many times, throughout the movie before we even knew that was a plot element. Yeah, a lot of people don't look back and think about those things. So that's really nice to know that it conveys. I think that with every shot, you have to think, what story am I telling? And if I were to even isolate this shot and show it on its own, what is it saying? Like, very much like photography, very much like a painting. You want to think about point of view. You want to think about what it's going to evoke on its own, and then part of, a larger story. So, yeah, I wouldn't waste any shot. And I think that for a film like this, we wanted to start off a little more subtle. So as the film gradually gets more and more intense, the style ramps up a little more. We don't have really a moving camera very much until the killing starts to happen and things start to happen, and now we're on steady cam, and now it's a little more frenetic. So it's all about pre-visualizing and realizing that each camera placement is going to create a certain effect. How do you want to use those? What do you want people to feel?
Right. And another scene in particular, which I'm very fond of, is when everybody's sitting at the dining table and the camera just arcs, presenting every a circular angle to every character. I find that instead of being steady or the 1-2 angle, which is kind of boring already, but that circular angle really adds drama to the conversation. They could be talking about the weather, but just that angle alone just enhances everything.
Yeah. That was a really nice trick. It makes me feel a little uneasy, and that's what we wanted.
The first time I seen an angle like that was, I believe it was The Dark Knight, and I said to myself, wow, why aren't filmmakers really utilizing the full potential of their work environment, especially when there is a deep engaging conversation between more than two parties? You want to get everybody's reaction at the same time.
Right. Yeah, we were looking at Reservoir Dogs, and it's they cut it up a lot in that movie, and it's done well. It's just a different. We said, okay, what if we did something like what they do in Reservoir Dogs, but instead of cutting it up, we just keep it one take, and we make sure every time we go around, we're at the right speed where we're going to get the reaction we want from that actor. So we did it a couple of times, and it is one of my favorite shots in the film as well.
There's something actually, when you do it in one take, whether it's that particular shot around in a circle, or if you're just in one take with two characters kind of going back and forth, that you really gain an immediacy when you're not cutting. You're really in the moment with them, where you feel it's alive. You feel the reactions instead of the normal back and forth cut. It feels manipulated in a way, which all film is. But when you keep it in one, you kind of gain something there. So I think that's what we felt in that.
Another thing that resonates from the visual narrative for Hospitality, there are various aspects of the psychological element, but one that really sticks out is pretty much greed, and it all has to do with the central plot, which I'm not going to elaborate. Audiences will have to tune into the film to watch the film. But was one aspect that when you guys were composing the script, this was going to be the central core of bridging everyone together?
Yeah, I think that it's not so much greed as it is desperation.
Right.
So the money is not that much money. I mean, I think there's like $80,000 in there. It's like they're not gonna live off the fat of the land and retire forever. It's just these people are very desperate, and it's just they keep making decisions out of desperation, which is a bad place to make decisions from. And every time they do that, there's a consequence, and they just keep digging themselves deeper into a hole. And then it's like, how did we get here? There are dead bodies all around. How did we get here? I like that. I like that element of taking people who are actually, they could have a good heart. And she says that, they could be good people, but it's circumstantial. You keep fucking hitting them down, and they're going to start to get vicious. So I'd say it's that over greed. It's seeing a light at the end of the tunnel and just needing to get there.
But I will say that, greed and desperation kind of go hand in hand. And I think a lot of the, more maybe books that we were influenced by, those are some central themes, some pulp novels, some crime novels, that stuff is definitely, in the forefront.
Yeah, I love A Simple Plan. We both read that book like 3 times. Not while we were doing this, but just in general. I mean, from Scott Smith, that's a really great modern noir. I think thematically we have similarities.
And in my opinion, I see the Hospitality really has the trappings of very elaborately used metaphors. And watching the film, I could see how this can relate to a regular person, everyday life, who does certain decisions, and they just the shit keeps hitting the fan, let's say, and they don't know how to get out of that situation, much like the protagonist has within the ending of Act 2, moving on to Act 3.
Yeah, that's gonna, sometimes like when you're really angry or whatever, and then bad things keep happening to get you more angry. I mean, you got to break it. You got to get out of that headspace. So yeah, absolutely. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse.
With Hospitality, when I seen the initial trailer, which we covered in our previous podcast, I had the impression it had the elements somewhat of a home invasion in a way. But after watching the film, I said, okay, it technically is not a home invasion because she pretty much opened the door to let danger into the home.
Yeah. But I do like some of those movies. I watched a really peculiar one not too long ago called Lady in a Cage, where she gets stuck in an elevator. I'd say that's not inaccurate. We wanted to. Panic Room was a movie that we referenced a couple times.
But I think what is different than maybe is portrayed in the trailer, and I think it's actually a nice thing to hold back on, is that, you know, while and maybe this is a spoiler, I don't know, but, you know, while Donna can lock her front door, you know, to keep people out, what we don't know is that Zane, the cop, has his own set of keys. So it's our own kind of, you know, yeah, it's not necessarily home invasion if your invader has a key, but in a way it is, you know. So I guess you're right. It is, but it isn't.
Right. It's a paradox here. But speaking about the trailer, though, I see that that's one marketing tool where especially indie filmmakers overlook. I'm unsure if they do it themselves or they have outsourced for editing. But when I seen the trailer for Hospitality, I really wanted to know about the character, the protagonist, what situation she's in. From both your opinions, how important is it to really craft the trailer to really get the audience attention?
Yeah, well, I think that you only have a few seconds to keep people's attention, especially in this day and age. So, you know, you got to try as hard as you can to hook people into what, you know, the heart of your story is. And, you know, I think it was a good combination with us because David and I, you know, we love editing and we are really, really hands-on with not only editing the film, but editing the trailer. But we also had a really key MVP is our producer, Howard, comes from the advertising world, and he was able to help us with that. You know, that's his bread and butter, and so he was able to really help us with, you know, cutting the trailer and making it even better. So we were lucky in that aspect.
Right. It is always good to have someone who with advertising savvy. That point of view always helps out. And in my opinion, shorter the trailer, as you had mentioned, we're living in an age with short attention spans or kitten videos. So really emphasizing, but not emphasizing, is also key for the trailer.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it.
Thanks. And beginning with Mr. Chakwin, in your opinion, being you have 2 features, much success will be coming upon with Hospitality soon with its release. What advices do you give for us filmmakers, especially those who may be currently in the School of Visual Arts and want to get their feet wet?
Yeah, sure. You know, I'd say the best advice I can give is probably to write every day. You know, it's free. You can do it anywhere you are. I think a lot of the scary burdens before when you're starting out is that everything seems inaccessible or, you know, something like that. But if, you know, writing is free, and, you know, if you have a good script, you know, people are searching for those. So it's not for nothing. So I'd say write every day. I'd say try to find like-minded people. You know, finding David and working with him has been one of the best things that happened to me because, you know, it's like going to the gym. You know, you need a buddy to help encourage you, you know, on days where you just don't feel like writing, you know, the other person can be encouraging and, you know, goes back to writing every day. But, yeah, just keep your head up. You know, I think that keeping a positive attitude is really important. I think that is a contagious thing, your attitude. And, you know, every person that you meet should leave feeling better since they met you, you know, just having that kind of energy is really great. And that's good for networking. I think should probably move to LA. I mean, New York is great, but if we're being realistic, I think that the amount of opportunities are greater here. So yeah, I mean, that's probably a starting point.
Good. And same question for Mr. Guglielmo.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything he said. I think that your enthusiasm and the way you present yourself and the way you're excited about your own project can really go a long way. The work should speak for itself, and I do think that the cream rises, and that if you have a great script, you know, you could be a weirdo, but you have a great script, and they'll make your script. Maybe they won't hire you to direct it, but I think that, you know, if you're in the room and you're kind of like really getting people excited about your movie, you know, not in like a used car salesman way, but in a genuine way. I mean, Tarantino said something that I really like back like when he made Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction really early on in his career. He said, if you truly love cinema, you cannot help but make a good movie. and it doesn't matter about the 180-degree rule, and it doesn't matter about the, whatever they teach you in film school. You will make a great movie if you truly love cinema, and I believe that. And when I picked up a camera for the first time, I knew what to do, and it wasn't because I read, these books, or, I wrote scripts. I never read Save the Cat or anything. I just knew how to do it. It was my intuition because I truly love cinema. So I think that, you can't be a writer who's never read novels. So watch every movie. If you're a filmmaker, you need to watch every movie. If I mention a movie from the 30s or the 40s or the 50s and you don't know what I'm talking about and it's a seminal film, then what are you doing? You have to do the research. So as accessible as the technology is, I think that we're going in the opposite direction when it comes to being cinephiles. Filmstruck is gone now. Netflix has very few films before the 70s. We need to get those movies back into the cultural conversation, especially if you want to be a filmmaker.
You definitely hit the nail on the head with that comment. When I was taking film courses at the local community college, the professor, that was the first thing he said. Who here has experience creating film? And nobody raised their hand. He says, all of you sitting here have experience creating film. You walk into a cinema or you're watching a film at home, you know what angles work. You know how the lighting should be. You may not like it. You may like it. You critique it. That is one step forward in becoming a filmmaker right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more that you watch, it seeps into your bloodstream, on a subconscious level. It's not necessarily something you notice in the moment, but you notice, as you said, you notice when a shot works. You notice if an angle feels jarring, and then you realize, oh, maybe you can look back and see that they, crossed the 180 or whatever, and that's technical, but but it's not, because you just feel a jolt in your brain, and that's a visceral reaction, which is really, really cool. I think, same with music, and writing, with books, it's just you have to experience it and have it become part of your DNA,
Absolutely. And one final question before I open up for your platform so you could plug in hospitality. And the final question is this: as filmmakers, as storytellers, what, in your opinions, especially in, let's say, mainstream, let's use them put them on the spot here. What is one area that they seem to be lacking and you would really like to see a focus on, especially horror/thrillers?
I think that we're in a place right now where making a little bit of money isn't enough. It needs to be a franchise. So I think that a lot of these movies are being rebooted, or there's IP. I would like to see more original horror movies for sure.
Also, I would say, technically, I think that everything can just be we can raise the bar with that. I think because television is so prominent right now, and I think most television is story based. They just want to keep people coming back. What's the hook? What's going to get you to hit binge something? That they're putting the technical aspect on the back burner, and I see that with a lot of movies too. It's not just TV. I think that the bar is a little low for what people will call passable.
But having said that, I want to bring it back to a positive note. There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of, especially horror movies. I saw some horror movies recently that I thought were just terrific. One is called Raw, R-A-W.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was amazing. And one was called Hereditary, which I'm sure everyone knows. That blew me away. I saw it twice in theaters. And both of those were original movies, original stories from first-time filmmakers. So I think that, you take risks on hiring first-time filmmakers, and it pays off a lot of the time because they bring a freshness to a genre that might be stale otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm hoping for. Hollywood really incorporating directors and storytellers from the independent scene and bringing that fresh content. With this final segment for this interview, please feel free, open platform, plug in hospitality, anything you care to add, and also your personal or social media handle specifically for hospitality?
Yeah, so, our movie opens tomorrow, December 7th, and it's playing at the AMC theaters in LA at Universal City Walk. It's going to be playing twice a day there for a week, and we have a screening next Saturday in New York. If you're in Brooklyn, come out. It's at the Syndicated Theater in Bushwick, and we'll be there for a Q&A after. It's playing in Atlanta this Saturday, I believe, and there'll be a Q&A with our lead, Emmanuel Chiriki. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I think we're also playing at a couple theaters in Canada.
Cineplex.
Yeah, Cineplex.
Yeah, the handle. Yeah, we're playing in Chicago. We're doing a lot of theaters, and we're very, very pleased by that.
Plus
I really
on-demand wide.
Yeah, yeah. But I really want to encourage everyone to go see it in the theater. I think it's the kind of movie that you get out of it what you put into it. You need to sit and watch. It's not like you said, for short attention spans. Not to say it's slow, but it's a theatrical experience, I think. Right. The handles for the social media, I think, is Hospitality Film on everything: Facebook, Instagram. I don't have much of a social media presence at all, but you can follow the film.
You can find me at Nick Chakwin. David's at David A. Guglielmo.
I might not be I don't even know what it is. I'm only on Instagram. I don't have
Find
Facebook.
the film. Find the film and you'll be fine.
Yeah. You don't want to see, unless you just want to see pictures of my cats.
That's hilarious. Yeah, my personal one is just random stuff too. No worries there.
Yeah. But I really, we really appreciate. So we sold out a theater. We sold out the showing tomorrow night. And it just really warms our hearts. We love that people are supporting indie film, and if people want to tell us that they like it, or even if they don't like it, communication, definitely, post on Amazon, post on IMDb, post on Twitter, because, with a movie like this, it's a very small movie, and we have a PR team that's doing a great job, but you could only do so much because it is a small movie. Word of mouth is going to make or break a movie like this. So let's get a dialogue going. I would love to hear what people think.
Segment 3, Trailer First Impressions. Ghost in the Graveyard.
Ghost in the graveyard, 1, 2, 3. Ghost in the graveyard, can't catch me.
Is everyone ready?
1 o'clock, the ghost isn't here. 2 o'clock, the ghost isn't here.
To this day, she still haunts me. And I think she always will.
Where is she? Sally! Sally!
3 o'clock, the ghost.
Kenner 2's here, and kicking off our third and final segment for this podcast. Segment 3, Trailer First Impressions, is the trailer for the film Ghost in the Graveyard. This is on IMDb. It is classified as an action, drama, horror, but in my opinion, I think this movie is more horror thriller. It's going to release in 2019, and the synopsis is: a small town comes under the thumb of Martha, a ghost who returns to haunt the children who witnessed her death during a game of Ghost in the Graveyard as young children. The film is written and directed by Charlie Comparetto. Interesting. Stacy, what a way to kick off this segment. Amazing cinematography and story and the characters. Yeah, I am looking forward to watching Ghost in the Graveyard. The trailer definitely exhibits quality film right here.
I felt the same way. At first, I felt like it reminded me a little bit of Light as a Feather, but only, with kids, of course. But like the way the trailer was playing out, I instantly visioned Light as a Feather. But I have to agree with you. This is very interesting, and I cannot wait to see this. I mean, I loved it, the visuals, the acting, everything.
Yes, it's truly a remarkable trailer, and that's one thing that we always speak about. Trailers are a marketing tool, and it could make or break your audience going to watch the film. And not only that, but if you show quality stuff in your film and you put it in the trailer, people are going to watch it. And here you can tell right off the bat, the cinematography is amazing, especially that scene with the two girls running through the cemetery. It's, you know, something is going to happen, and then you have the girls that are bullies. It just has everything that you've seen before, but rehashed.
Ribbons.
I've been building a shelter. If anything bad happens to the world in any way, shape or form, it's somewhere that Kirsten and I can go and be safe from everything. This is a Type 4 water-resistant ground.
Stacey Cox here with DecayMag, and next we're going to talk about Ribbons. Ribbons is directed by Gregor Barkley and Colin Bell. The writers include, and there's actually several of them, Kim Allen, Gregor Barkley, Colin Bell, Ali Craig, Robert Jack, Kristen McLean, and Christy Strain. The cast stars Kim Allen, Christy Strain, Kristen McLean, Ali Craig, and Robert Jack. And Kim, would you believe it? I found it on IMDb, and there is not a darn plot. There's not a synopsis. So not only is this trailer confusing, but now we don't even know what the heck it's about. So Kim, what did you think about Ribbons?
Right instant in the first 30 seconds. Cloverfield, the Cloverfield movie with oh gosh, what's his name? Oh, you know the one I'm talking about.
I've never seen Cloverfield.
John Goodman. It was 10 Cloverfield Lane. It released in 2016. Yes. Now, in that movie, John Goodman, he held a young woman sort of against her will in an underground bunker while the alien apocalypse was happening above. As soon as I watched Ribbons, that film came to mind instantly, right away. Here we have the interesting thing about this trailer is it's going to be a lot of psychological drama, and you're going to have a slow boiler. Let's see what happens. I'm curious to know what happens in the final scene with these girls and this.
The Great Buddha Arrival.
Ken R2's here, and the third trailer we're going to be discussing in segment 3, trailer first impressions, is The Great Buddha Arrival. And this film is actually a reboot of the 1934 Japanese film titled Daibutsu Kiboku, and it was directed by Yoshiro Arabasa. This Daibutsu Kaiku is the movie about a big Buddha statue. Daibutsu means a big Buddha statue walking around a country. One day it begins to walk and visit around Japan. Okay. Wow. A reboot. In any event, Hiroto Yokoawa is the producer and director, and this film is written by Hiroto Yokoawa, Yuri Yokanzawa, and Kazuma Yoiyama. Okay. Stacy. Fascinating trailer here. 30-second trailer. I think this trailer said so much in 30 seconds. I did not know that this was a reboot. Okay. What is your opinion on this? Oh, wow.
Let's see. All I can say is something about that statue.
Yeah, you got that right. It's something about that statue.
The whole trailer. That statue was the key to the whole trailer. That's all I gathered from that. Everything else, I mean, I danced. I danced a lot. I was like, doing a Carlton and everything. But that statue, I looked up, I was like, yeah, that statue. It's something about that statue. That movie is going to be about the statue, I guarantee it.
Yes, I think you're right. And usually I watch the trailer, even if it's a teaser like this, and I'll just gather how the acting is. That's one thing I always look for. And wow, the acting in this movie is so phenomenal.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to. I'm sorry. The acting.
Wow.
You saw the acting? Oh man, I didn't even see that. I just okay.
Oh yeah. Wow. I don't know what to say. The great I don't know what market is this going to really target. How is this horror again? A walking Buddha. I think this would have worked well in 1934, but no, not. Imagine.
Hey,
no.
Violence by music.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, violence by music.
I would watch Buddha versus Pterodactyl. That would be cool. That's a great idea. They should make that.
But you know what? I'm telling you, it's something about the statue. That's where it all lies. That's why even the cover art is of the statue.
Yes.
It's something about that statue.
Yes.
It's something like, it's like National Treasure type of, or Angels and Demons. It's something like that.
Oh gosh.
I'm telling you, it's gonna be something like that.
Wow. Well, according to the press release, legendary Godzilla and Japanese film actor Akira Taradada has joined the cast of the remake for the 1934 film The Great Buddha Arrival. Now, this is a kaiju film. Now, for those who do not know, kaiju classifies Godzilla, King Kong, the Pacific Rim creatures. Those are kaiju. I don't see Buddha as a kaiju. Come on. It's an overgrown statue. How is it a kaiju? Kaijus are mostly creatures. I don't know. Wow. What are we going to see next? Oversized
evil statue.
Yeah, right? Oh, gosh.
This statue is evil. That's what it is. The music is to, like, deter you from that. This statue is evil.
Yes.
I'm telling you, do you see the cover art in IMDb? It's of the statue because that statue is evil.
That statue. It's the I think the statue.
And the trailer.
Yes.
The trailer is like subliminal. It's trying to, like, I don't know what the heck the trailer is trying to do, but there's like that little clip of the statue, and you're like, that's what it is. It's a statue. That's what I gathered from it. You can't fool me, trailer. Sorry. Can't fool me at all.
Well, can't pull the wool over your eyes.
Nope, because I don't know what the heck that trailer tried to do, but yeah, that statue was out of place. So that's how I'm like, wait, what the heck is the statue for? I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. It's a statue.
Well, usually I would say I'm looking forward to watching this film, but I think I'm giving this one a pass.
Curse Palette teaser episode.
Stacey Cox here with DecayMag. And next we're going to talk about Cursed. Ever been interrupted by an interdimensional force of evil whilst on the toilet? Or had to take responsibility of a possessed doll when you haven't even mastered personal responsibility? Had to distance yourself from a clingy demon spirit in the form of a clown? Isaac and Ned have, and they're not overly thrilled about it. Cursed is a horror comedy series that parodies the cliches and techniques typically found in the horror genre, similar in the style of Shaun of the Dead. Shot with the intention of an online release, Cursed draws influence and satirizes such horror films as The Conjuring, It, The Nun, and Annabelle. The story follows Isaac, Kyle McCallion, who releases a curse on himself after finding the Ouija board on a drunken night. Through each episode, he and his useless housemate Ned, Omar Al-Sabki, must deal with countless paranormal hauntings whilst managing their daily mundane. Curse is from head above water creator Connor Fairclough and Tristan Ken. I hope you watched Curse because yeah. So let me tell you about Curse. So we see the Ouija board again, right? And we all know it's like, the Ouija board. We're so sick of, but forget the Ouija board in this movie. The rest of the movie is just like, what the heck is going on? I mean, yes. Kim, what did you think about Cursed?
Oh, Cursed. I only saw pieces of Cursed. I haven't seen the whole pilot, which is 10 minutes long. I was under the impression it was a trailer because it says Cursed. Well, anyway, it's a pilot for a series. And now, Stacey, there's a series on Fox that is the same concept where you have these two guys that are paranormal investigators, and they're funny comedians. I'm not sure if it's still in circulation on Fox. I know season 1 started.
I know what you're talking about. Are you talking about are you talking about John dies at the end?
No, that's the movie.
Oh, are you talking about Ghosted?
That's the one. Yes.
Okay, Ghosted.
Yes.
Well, let me tell you something. Okay, so Curse is okay, so you know how we feel about Ouija movies, right?
Yes.
And we're just like, another Ouija movie. Why?
Right. Yeah.
When it comes to Curse, this is a different kind of Ouija movie because you see the Ouija board, you're just like, oh, it's another one of these.
Right.
But it is so funny. Okay, it is hilarious. It is hilarious, and yet you don't even know what is going on here. You're just like, what is? But
yeah, Cursed. From the press release, it shows that this series is gonna make fun of every little thing that is you find in horror, whether it's the Ouija board, a doll, or whatever it is. Oh gosh. Hey. You know.
And it does that.
Hey. Just like I don't see Annabelle the same way again thanks to the Wayans brothers. So let's see if these guys would do the same thing with some cliche thing with the horror films.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Okay. FYI, guys, do not try to have any kind of relations with Annabelle, please.
Yes.
We've already seen that, and We don't want to see that again. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah, and that's
it just didn't work.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It did not work at all.
No,
okay?
And it doesn't work
at all.
Hello, it's something called Splinters. Hello.
Yeah, I love the Wayans Brothers, but that did not work.
Not at all.
Didn't work. No, don't do it. And you know what? Honestly, what it reminded me of, that it's completely different, way off track. But you remember that movie Splice?
What, Cursed?
No. Do you remember the movie Splice with
yes, with the creature? Yeah.
And him and the creature. That's what, like, Marlon Wayans and Annabelle reminded me. I was just like, what the heck just happened here? And I don't think so. No, honestly, that movie Spice, that scene made me walk out. I was just like, screw this. No. No. This is no. It's just no.
Oh, wow.
And actually, yeah. Haunted House.
Yeah.
With Marlon Wayans.
But what about Cursed? Did Cursed make you want to turn it off? Were there any parts of this?
No, because nothing like that happens.
Okay.
No. So with Cursed, something. Oh man, with Cursed. Cursed is a different kind of series.
Okay.
And what I can say is, it is an acquired taste. It's what it is. It's an acquired taste, okay? But I want to see the whole series.
Oh, okay.
I do. I want to see the whole series.
Oh, that's
just
good
to
to
get
hear.
Up. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And you know that's the good thing about YouTube. A lot of creators are doing stuff for YouTube now and creating this series, seasons, podcasts even. Yeah, I really like this time because now you could catch different ideas. We always talk about horror and having different ideas. Here you go. You have a horror comedy, which I don't particularly like horror comedy so much. It has to be really best of both worlds. It can't be too scary with gore, and it can't be too corny with jokes. It has to be in between. There's very few films that does that. But seeing that this is a series, hey, you got to give credit. Making a series is just as hard as making a full feature film.
And actually, I think making a series is even harder
than
making a feature film. Because just think, like we talk about this all the time, you got this idea, this concept, and you got to stretch it over however many episodes, right? And then if it's successful enough, you got to stretch it over seasons.
Right. Absolutely.
That concept has to stretch over seasons.
Right.
If it's lucky enough to pass the first season,
right?
So
and not only that,
if you ask me, shows are even twice as hard,
right? And not only that, but shows on TV are half hour, 45 minutes long. When you make an online content, that has to be under 10 minutes. It can be over 10 minutes. Why? Because people have short attention spans. And the trick here is 10 minutes. A script is 10 pages. So you're going to have to do a story, character arc, everything in 10 pages. That's challenging. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I'll give Chris a watch. Yeah.
It sounds challenging, but some of these shows should only be 10 minutes at the same time.
Yeah. Yes.
It does. That does sound really challenging when you first think about it. But just think about, all of the short films we've seen, or some of these shows that it's like, really? So pretty much it was like 5 to 10 minutes of action and the rest is just dialogue.
Right.
You know, so when you think about it in that aspect, hey, it's not as hard as you think.
That's so true. Well, you'll be giving Curse to watch, so would I. As I mentioned, I only seen bits and pieces. I'm gonna watch the whole
we gotta
clip.
watch this together over Rabbit. Let's get the whole crew together and just watch over Rabbit, have spaghetti, and have a good time, and just laugh.
Oh, that sounds like a cool viewing party right there. Spaghetti, garlic bread, wine.
Yes, and just watch it all and just laugh.
That is a great idea.
Closing thoughts.
Thank you for tuning in to DecayMag Horror Entertainment News Podcast, Season 9, Episode 5. My name is Ken Artuz, your host, and I am the founder for DecayMag. Joining me this evening as co-host was
Stacy Cox, staff correspondent. Be sure to stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/DecayMag. Your donations will help us bring future episodes. As a patron, you'll receive bonus content as well as free and discounted on upcoming DecayMag merchandise.
And of course, you can find DecayMag Podcast on Google Music, Apple Podcasts /iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. We are also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. I think I got them all. Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, under @DecayMag, DecayMag. And also the website is DecayMag.com. We're DecayMag, not Decay Magazine or the letter DK or the word decay. DecayMag. So, Stacy, to close it out, closing thoughts. What really stuck out for you for the movie news? For me, Resident Evil Reboot. Really? Do we really need this garbage again?
No. It's too soon. It's way too early. Like, it's in the 2000s. Come on, give us a decade at least.
Yes.
At least before you even go rebooting something.
Right. Yeah. I'm definitely. I love zombies movies. I love infection movies. I love zombie movies with action. But I am not looking forward to this reboot at all. I'd rather wait for another anime to come out or play the game, which I bought the game for Christmas and I still have yet to touch.
Or like wait till decades later, like Hollywood is doing. Like, we're rebooting movies from the 70s. I can see that, even though I don't like reboots, but I can see rebooting a movie from the 70s versus we're in 2018. We're rebooting movies from the 2000s. Like, what? Seriously?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, just stupid, idiotic. But on the flip side, we have Voices and The Patient Who Nearly Drove Me Out of Medicine, which is two interesting original concepts that I'm looking forward to much with anticipation.
Very original, but The Patient Who Nearly Drove Me Out of Medicine, shorten that title. That is the one title where I would be like, okay, investors, let's shorten that title up a little bit and just make it The Patient or something like that. Just that is too long of a title right there. Way too long of a title.
Yeah, I don't think, maybe it's marketable. We never know. Imagine you go into the movies with your friends. Hey, what movie you gonna watch? Oh, we're gonna watch The Patient Who Needed You.
I mean, the concept is awesome. Don't get me wrong. It is. Ryan Reynolds, go ahead, Deadpool. Yeah. But that title, man, it's too long.
Yeah,
it's
shorten it up. For the trailers, what really stuck out for you?
For the trailers, I would say, first of all, Curse is not a trailer. That is a short film. Short featured film or movie, okay? As far as the trailers go, Ghost in the Graveyard is what stuck out for me.
Right. Absolutely. Here, I agree 100%. I'm looking forward to that film. Ribbons, if you like, and if you enjoy a slow boiler, 10 Cloverfield Lane, anyone? That's a film to look out for. And The Great Buddha Arrival. If you want to see a movie about a moving statue, yeah.
A movie about movie clips. No, it's the evil statue, I'm telling you.
Oh my God.
That was it. It was subliminal. I figured it out now.
Yes.
That trailer was subliminal. Okay?
Yeah.
After all of that, the statue was out of place. I'm like, wait a minute, something about that statue. That's what it was.
Yes. I think audiences who watch the trailer, I don't think they're gonna get the hidden message that the statue is the villain. Yeah. I don't think they will.
I think horror fans will get it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Horror fans will get it because they'll know. They'll be like, okay, this is subliminal in some kind of way.
Yes.
What is going on here? So they're going to watch it again and again. It's like, it's that darn statue.
It's the statue. Something about it.
It's something in the statue. Maybe that statue is generating music that's like corrupting the minds of everybody, right? It's all about the government.
Oh my gosh. Hilarious.
I'm sorry. I just went everywhere with this movie. You gotta wait for that one. I just went everywhere.
Ooh, I tell you. Leave it up to the Japanese to create a crazy, funny concept.
You know what? But you gotta say the Japanese, the Asians, like, just picture, okay? They came up in ABCs of Death. F is for farts, okay? Only the Japanese can come up with that. Okay?
Exactly.
A horror cinema about farts. So you gotta think. Hey, it's an evil statue. Yeah, why not?
Exactly. Oh wow. In any event.
What about that movie Scissors? Or what's it called? Scissors with the I think it was it Asian or Korean with the it was a boogeyman, right? Asian or Korean. She had long hair, but the movie's called Scissors or something like that. You remember that?
No.
Yeah.
I remember slit mouth woman that she had her mouth was cut open.
That's what it was. The slit mouth woman, but I thought it was called Scissors. What was it called? Slit mouth?
Yeah, slit mouth woman. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was called Scissors. My bad.
Maybe they did change it. They always change it.
Slit mouth woman, right? That came from them.
Yeah.
And what about that one short with the hair, the killer hair?
Yeah, extensions. Yes. Exactly.
You gotta love it.
You have to.
So the Great Buddha Arrival is subliminal.
Hey, I'm keeping my eye out for that one. He's not gonna walk past me, I tell you.
No, the Great Buddha Arrival is not fooling me. It's that darn statue is what it is. That's the only thing that's out of place in that whole trailer.
Oh, gosh.
It's the statue. And then we got Cursed.
Yes, Cursed, which is a great series to check out. Comedy. Yeah, I gotta watch it. I gotta check this out.
Yeah, it's you gotta watch it because it's this is a pizza movie.
Pizza. Oh, we went from spaghetti to pizza. Okay.
It's a pizza film. No, this is a pizza film. When you watch it, it's a pizza film. Pizza and beer.
Oh, all right. Now we're getting classy
I'm
here.
telling you, we gotta get the whole crew together and just get on Rabbit and watch this series together and just laugh over pizza and beer.
Oh, that's gonna be cool. All right, that's an adventure right there. Oh wow! So there you have it. This concludes another podcast episode. Thank you for tuning in.